Greetings, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Monday, March 17th. For those of you watching live, maybe you've been at the bar all day. Maybe you're just getting ready to have your second win and go back out. Grab your corned beef sandwich, grab a Guinness, whatever it is. We're happy you're here at the Wolverine for our what is a pretty jam-packed Monday night episode here. We've got NCAA Tournament selection and Michigan seed after winning the Big Ten tournament. We're going to lead with that today, of course. We also got to talk to both coordinators today from the football program. Spring football starts on Tuesday in Ann Arbor. We got to chat with Wink Martindale and Chip Lindsey. Chip Lindsey, for the first time since becoming the offensive coordinator, and a lot of stuff to pour through there, and a lot to get to in general, fellas. The last few days have been a blur. I have to be completely honest, and I think we might all be in lockstep on this. I packed for 3 days, but I kind of thought I'd be coming home Saturday and going to Bed Bath & Beyond or Target or something with my wife, and all of a sudden I'm not home until midnight.
Home Depot
on Sunday night.
I don't know if I have enough time. Home Depot, but yeah, we were stunned. I did not pack accordingly. I was wearing short sleeves when it was 39 degrees on the walk over to Gainbridge Fieldhouse on Sunday, and that's what I get for doubting Dusty May. What a job he's done with this program. And no matter what anybody says, a banner is a championship. It's funny how it works, right? When you win a conference tournament, and then some people are saying, well, you know what? It's not the regular season tournament, or the regular season championship, and that's more important, unless it's the other way around, like it was in 2014 when you had a bunch of Michigan State writers say, well, the conference tournament's more important anyway because you get the automatic bid. In my opinion, any banner is a good banner, fellas, and Michigan gets a banner in Dusty May's first year. Outstanding. What a fun time, guys. We had a great time. Prime 47 on Saturday night with the great Dave Safey. A few others sat at MJ's table.
Star Dave Safey.
Yes, and we sat at Michael Jordan's table apparently at the Prime 47. Bill Raftery was there. Got a little hello and go blue from Tracy Wolfson. So this has been this is one hell of a way to start off March Madness, fellas.
Yeah, I thought Michigan was going to lose out. That's what I was being told for a couple of weeks there by all sorts of people. But as I wrote a few weeks ago, you're only playing well until you're not, and you're only not until you are, and things can change quickly in this sport. Next thing you know, from Sunday to Sunday, Anthony and I are there in East Lansing last Sunday. Michigan had just lost its third straight game to end the regular season. Michigan State cuts down the nets at the Jack Breslin Student Events Center. A week later, Michigan's cutting down nets in Indianapolis after Michigan State went home early on Saturday in the semifinal. Michigan beats Wisconsin. It's amazing what 1 week can do. This sport is incredible, and I'm super excited for this week with all the games. And tonight's kind of one of those nights where you're like, all right, where's the basketball? I've been watching basketball for every day, pretty much every minute of every day for over a week now with all these conference tournaments in Indy for the Big Ten tournament. You get one night off, and then we got the first four tomorrow. So it's going to be super fun. We'll be out in Denver in a couple days, and this is the best time of year.
It is. Also want to shout out pals, listeners of the show, I guess, now. Randy and Jason Sklar got to go out and see their show on Thursday night. They recorded a nice personalized video message for our buddy Chris Ballas here that we'll let stay there. But Jason and Randy, great guys, amazing show. If you guys are able to catch them on any of these tour dates they have coming up, definitely go out and see them. Hilarious act. They are masters of their craft. So Jason and Randy, just wanted to shout those guys out. We are brought to you, of course, tonight by our friends over at HomefieldApparel.com. Use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order. And if you're in the mood for basketball right now, it's March Madness. You want to boost your Michigan collection, head on over to Homefield. They've got plenty of T-shirts I'm staring at on the website right now. They've got hoodies, the football joggers. They've got the coaches' jackets, the bombers' jackets. It's all there. They have about as expansive a Michigan collection as anyone on the internet. So use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order today over at HomefieldApparel.com. We'll start, I guess, with a $4.99 super chat from our guy Michigan Go Blue 1234, who says, winning a championship felt incredible. Great to see support from former players like DJ, Sean D, Who knows how we'll look Friday? Well, it's Thursday. Hopefully they look good in practice because it means they're playing Saturday. But I'm hopeful, he says. So that's a great segue. We'll leave that up on the screen for a few minutes as we talk about Michigan's draw. They go out, they win the Big Ten tournament, 3 wins in 3 days. They get one over Purdue, Maryland, and Wisconsin. Apparently, the selection committee enjoyed their all expenses paid trip, but they stopped working on Friday, kicked up their feet. I don't know if they went where I don't even know where their headquarters is. Clayton, where is the selection committee at?
I don't know. Are they in Indy? I feel like it's always in Texas or something, but that's football.
Well, whatever it was,
wherever they serve, somewhere where they serve booze, clearly, because
it's definitely somewhere warm. Now that I think of it, too. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think you can say, I think you can say just about everything you need to say about this field in general. I know there are gripes about Michigan's draw as a 5 seed. Should have been a 4. You end the year with 3 straight quad 1 wins, 12 quad 1 wins on the season. Only 3 teams in the country had more than that, which was Auburn, Houston, and Michigan State. They had the resume for that. Whatever the criteria was, they're a 5 in the South region, where they'll start in Denver. You guys will be out in Denver this week, taking on a very interesting and strange UC San Diego team that could give them a lot of problems. We'll talk about what that matchup is here in a little bit, but Michigan's a 5, coming off the Big Ten title, coming off of, again, I know analytically they were still kind of in the mid to high 20s on the net, on KenPom, things like that, but it felt like the draw, I'll just say what it is. I feel like they kind of got screwed by that, especially when you look at where the teams ahead of them in this Big Ten conference went in terms of seeding.
Yeah, and I don't think we're doing them justice when we say 3 quad 1 wins, because I think you're talking about like 3 top 15 or top 20 teams, right? And Purdue, Maryland, based on where they're seated and what they've accomplished this year. You beat Wisconsin twice, including once at their place. You beat Purdue twice in the last 3 weeks, and then you beat Maryland, who was, just absolutely mauled Illinois. What a performance for Michigan in this tournament! And I never saw it coming. I figured they might win one more game in the NCAA tournament, because I have never seen a turnaround like this. I have seen teams limp into the tournament before, but I've never seen teams look so inept where they were last in the country over 3 weeks in 3-point shooting percentage. They were still way up there in turnover margin. They looked disjointed. They weren't talking on defense. And then all of a sudden on Friday, they're cutting like crazy. They look like the team that we saw at the beginning of the year. And that is unprecedented in my however many years of watching college basketball before the postseason. Again, I wrote about, Michigan losing at Penn State in the year that they went to the championship game with Trey Burke under John Beilein, and they lost to Indiana by missing free throws down the stretch. But those teams were loaded and they were still playing well. The Penn State game was kind of a fluke, but they looked flat out awful, fellas, by every stretch of the imagination, every dynamic. They looked terrible. And then they got their legs back and they got their confidence back. And I think a big part of that was Trey Donaldson finding his confidence again. And he said Dusty May talked to him during the week, and he said, look, there's a reason we brought you here, and this is because we want to win championships and you're our guy. And he started playing like a championship point guard. So that's exactly what they needed, because they were leaning way too heavily on their bigs. So Vlad Golden, clearly the MVP this weekend, but I thought Trey Donaldson was every bit as important. And I really thought the defense on Sunday, I know that Wisconsin missed a lot of open looks, but guys, they had to work their asses off just to get those open looks, because Michigan was in great position defensively and really communicated extremely well. So what a banner day for the Wolverines. What a first year for Dusty May. I am as excited about the postseason. We'll talk about the draw in a minute, but after looking at it, hey, bring it on, man. An Elite 8 with Michigan State, I think, would be fantastic. And I don't think it's out of the question.
Yeah, I think the worst part of the draw is that you have to play Thursday
right
in high altitude. I know Dusty May joked that, maybe Michigan's maybe a little bit higher than San Diego is. The mountains of Ann Arbor compared to San Diego, which is right at sea level, of course. But the good thing is San Diego played Saturday. They played Friday and Saturday, so it's not like they've been sitting around resting. And then even then, you would talk about maybe rest versus rust, the age-old debate that has not been solved. But that's tough. You play 3 days or 3 games in 3 days, and then a quick turnaround. They'll be on a plane tomorrow on Tuesday, and then they'll have the open practice there. 4:15 come out at Ball Arena in Denver, 4:15 local time, that is, before Thursday night's game. So at least they have, quite a bit of time there on Thursday to rest. But regardless, yeah, I mean, I think you wanted to see them get their mojo back, get a little bit of confidence. You certainly got that with the win on Friday. Then they went and they're like, well, we might as well go win the whole damn thing. And they do that Saturday with a kind of a shootout victory. And then the mud fight, or as Anthony would call it, a rock fight on Sunday. Dusty called it the mud fight, where nothing was really going right offensively for either team until Michigan turned it on later on in the game. But like you said, Chris, the defense, I mean, you hold Wisconsin to 27.6% shooting from 2, 7 of 39 from 3, even though some of them were open. I thought some of it was strategic, who they were leaving open. And then to hold John Tanji, who had scored 32 points the day earlier against Michigan State, to 1 of 14 shooting was pretty remarkable. John Blackwell got his. But, to win in those different ways, the way they did, to now give yourself some newfound confidence going into this week. And one of the reasons why you feel a lot better about this team is because of what Trey Donaldson did, including in the big moments, late in the games, the 3 against Maryland, and then obviously the game-winning layup against Maryland, but had some big shots yesterday as well. Just makes you feel a lot better about Michigan's outlook going into the NCAA tournament. And they look like a team that everyone wanted to pick. Everyone was going to pick the 11 seed if they were a 6, or the 12 seed if they're a 5, like they are. You're still going to get that because UC San Diego is such a highly rated 12 seed. But now Michigan kind of looks like the 5 seed that a 4 seed doesn't want to play, or a 1 seed in Auburn doesn't want to play in the next weekend, if that is in fact a matchup, which is again, just quite a change in the narrative, flipping the script from a week earlier.
Or as Brian Bush said, the play-by-play voice of Michigan basketball today, they look like the 5 seed that UC San Diego doesn't want to play, right? They are underseeded, Michigan is, and everybody's now, okay, Michigan, well, so on and so forth. You cannot deny what they did in the last 3 games. And when Dusty May said too, we're going to go there with a little bit of an edge now after being disrespected and having all these Big Ten teams being seated ahead of them. I like where Michigan is. I love the fact that they're going to have that chip on their shoulder, that disrespect card. They can borrow that from Michigan State and play that disrespect card out there in Denver. Can't wait to go to Denver, Clay. It's going to be fantastic out there. From what I hear, it's going to be sunny, beautiful, and see some Michigan fans out there. But I like where this team is right now. I like the way they're playing, and I never would have said this a week ago, guys. But fantastic turnaround.
I think it was easy for me to stay optimistic that they could turn it around because, one, I've said this before, I can't forget the high level of play that we saw really up until mid-January. And yeah, I get that the second half of the year, there were a lot of games that they won. I mean, they were very close games against teams that, they probably should have separated from a little more. And a lot of that was self-inflicted, but I like a team that can pull itself out of its own mistakes. I like a team that just goes out and wins the games. I can't say I've ever seen a team be penalized on the seed line for winning close games before. I mean, ultimately, wins or losses are what define success, right? So the fact that we'd seen them at pockets of time play the level of basketball that they played this weekend, and they've won in a lot of different ways. And, it's not, I don't know that it's predictive of what will happen come Thursday or come Saturday or come next weekend if they're fortunate enough to get there. But I'll say this. I know that this team is tough as hell. I know that they are incredibly well coached. They have one of the best coaches in college basketball. I don't know how that can be denied at all when you look at what he did at Florida Atlantic and now what he's done in year one with, kind of this ragtag group that they put together that they hoped would fit together, and they have. And I think one of the biggest things that they have going for them is that winning for this team is in their muscle memory. These guys came from a lot of different places and had a history of winning big games. Reuben Jones won a lot of big games at North Texas. They were on, he was on a team that upset Purdue in the NCAA tournament. Trey Donaldson played at Auburn for Bruce Pearl. Danny Wolf was at Yale last year, and they beat Auburn. So guys like that, eventually, I mean, we talk to people too who say that these guys are so high level in terms of their knowledge of the game, in terms of how bought in they are, that they can run the scout to a certain extent. So every team goes through a rough patch. This was obviously the reset they needed. I'm not gonna get into the comparing and contrasting. Oh, would it have been better to win the Big Ten regular season or the Big Ten tournament? Obviously, it would have been better to win the Big Ten regular season because you're probably a 2 seed or a 3 seed or whatever it is. Like, you would take that. On the same token, I feel like this team got exactly what it needed. Probably Friday night, definitely after the win Saturday, and then closing the deal on Sunday. You walk out of that feeling pretty good about where they're at mentally. And now let's talk about the draw, because I think when you look at what they could face, what they will face Thursday in UC San Diego, what they could face potentially Saturday when they play, or if they were to play a Texas A&M, two teams that can challenge them in very different ways. To start with UC San Diego, when you look at their profile, they're not a very big team. You look at that immediately jumps out. Could be the type of game where Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden get themselves going, and maybe that's enough on its own to lead you to success. But UC San Diego is, like we said before, a popular pick, almost kind of a national darling, to be one of those 12 seeds that does upset a number 5 seed in Michigan. And what they do very well is they turn you over at an extremely high rate. I think they're second in the country in that regard. They're also top 10 in protecting the basketball and not turning it over on on their end of it. And you flip over to Michigan's KenPom profile, and those are two areas that they've struggled in mightily this year. And that's where, when we talk about Trey Donaldson getting himself right, to me, really throughout the NCAA tournament, as far as they go, they will go as Trey Donaldson goes. But especially in a game like this on Thursday, and we'll do more of a deep dive on that pot of games when we preview the NCAA tournament later this week. But you almost kind of feel like, with how unique this team is, they'll play, that if you can get this first one under your belt, there's a chance that you could find yourselves in Atlanta next weekend.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think Texas A&M is not a scary team. They don't score well. They do crash the glass well, but guess what? Maryland had to. Michigan out rebounded them 47-18, and they held their own for the most part with Wisconsin. That was one physical game, and Wisconsin's a good rebounding team. Michigan was right there with them, so that game's not the scary one. And this frankly, after watching UCSD, they're not that scary either, right? This is not a team that's going to get up in your grill. When Michigan collapsed against Maryland, it was that full court pressure. It was the trap. They were making bad decisions with the ball. I think this is a game where we'll see if San Diego packs the lane and forces Michigan threes. You're going to have to make some flat out. Michigan has not been shooting at a great clip. I think their best this weekend was 38.9 in the Maryland win, if I'm not mistaken. So they're still, and which is good. But the other two games weren't great, obviously. But still, you're going to have those opportunities, but you can't settle. You've got to go. I think that 4-5 pick and roll might be something that you can exploit on Thursday night at 10 p.m., which sucks, by the way. And however, it's going to be, frankly, to me, it's going to come down to defense, and you've got to force them into taking twos, right? You can't have to guard the 3-point line. You can't leave those guys alone, because when you have games like this, it's that 3-pointer that is really largely responsible for upsets when you have a David versus Goliath matchup, and these guys can make threes. So guard like they did against Wisconsin, right? Make it hard for them to get to their spots. Don't overhelp. There's no reason to overhelp. If Wisconsin can't score inside on you, and they couldn't against Michigan, then this team certainly isn't going to. It's much less athletic. They've got basically one guy that I saw that could really create his own. And other than that, a bunch of guys. And I'm not trying to disrespect them, but I am saying that I think they're getting way too much love based on the film that I've seen and the way that Michigan matches up with them. I like Michigan to win this game. The 2.5 point spread doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think that's basically on metrics and everything else. But I think the talent disparity is going to be a lot bigger than people realize when we get the tip on Thursday night.
Yeah, this team poses a lot of problems for Michigan, but I think that there aren't things that Michigan can't overcome. I mean, Michigan has done an incredible job this year taking care of business in games that they should win. They've won 5 games against mid-majors by an average margin of 35.4 points per game. And remember, Michigan scheduled really well. They only had 2 quad 4 games. The other ones were against, maybe not teams that made the NCAA tournament, but some pretty solid mid-major teams. But this is a UC San Diego team that is going to try to turn you over pretty much at all costs and double team everything in the post. They're going to switch everything, play a matchup zone, switch back and forth between that. And they're man-to-man. They're a no-middle man-to-man defense team. So it's going to be a unique defense that you're going against. Vlad and Danny are going to have a bunch of bodies flying at them. They're going to force Vlad Golden, unless he finishes over the top of 2 guys, which he's more than capable of doing, but force him to pass the ball out. Try to get some turnovers that way. He's not a great passer out of double teams. But at the same time, and then on the other end of the floor, Michigan's going to be stretched out to the perimeter. They play 5 shooters on the floor. They're not a good offensive rebounding team, but I could see how bringing the bigs out of the post on defense could, maybe open up some offensive rebounding opportunities for UC San Diego. But, at the same time, if you're a UC San Diego fan and you're their coaching staff, you're looking at Michigan and saying, how the hell are we going to guard that? And, these guys are good. So I think a lot of the offense is going to come down to making open threes if you can avoid turnovers. And also the other thing is Michigan has largely beaten the teams that really rely on turning you over. Like Michigan's like, you're nothing special. We'll turn it over against anybody. So they've kind of been able to overcome that. If the only thing you can do is turn you over, another team over, Michigan will just kind of make up for their instability with the basketball by making a bunch of twos, kind of dominating you inside. It's a trade-off. So, not saying they could, it's impossible that they're going to turn the ball over 24 times and go home early on Thursday night. But I feel like there's some, multiple paths to victory here.
I would agree with that. And, it's kind of interesting and sort of, I love this when we talked to Dusty May after the game yesterday. He hears that the draw is UC San Diego. And one of the first things he says, that was on my list of teams that I was going to study in the offseason. Well, guess what, Dusty? Now it's a crash course. Now you guys are kind of crashing on it until, pretty all hands on deck until you play this game on Thursday night. So it's interesting. Again, I think that you can make the argument. Obviously, we have made the argument that both of these teams were a little underseeded, at least when you look at the wins that they had, and in UC San Diego's case, some of the metrics, maybe some of the advanced numbers that they have, but the draw in general, or I should say the path in general for this Michigan team, obviously they're going to play this team, the Tritons, on Thursday. It's going to be either Texas A&M or, again, maybe Danny Wolf's old team, Yale, on Saturday if they're fortunate enough to advance. And the fact that, that their coach has been able to overcome losing at Danny Wolf, and they lost one of their other really good players from last year. They're dangerous too. So, you get out of this first weekend. I'll just ask the question as simply as I can. How far is this team going to go on first glance?
Yeah, I think Sweet 16. I think they're going to win 2 games, and I think that's an unbelievably successful season in the first year, given what Dusty May assembled the roster in 3 weeks. I think in the spring, it's incredible what he's accomplished here, and they are Big Ten tournament champions. They get the automatic bid. So, but I like the fact I doubted Dusty May a little bit just because of how badly they had played limping into the postseason. But you look at his postseason record, fellas, and what he did with Florida Atlantic. That's not a fluke, right? This guy is so prepared. His out of timeout plays, his ATOs are fantastic. Some of the things that they showed, the double pick to get Trey Donaldson a shot at the end of one of those games, I think it was the Maryland game, was unbelievable. And the halftime dunk, Roddy Gale against Maryland, to go into the game, going to halftime with momentum. These are things that he's pulling out now. I asked John Beeline today, I talked to him, I said, Coach, do you leave anything for the tournament? And he said, no, because teams don't generally scout you as well you play teams one time, a lot of teams one time in the Big Ten, and he said a lot of teams aren't going to scout you well. And we were always so confident in the way that we were scouting other teams that we felt good about our stuff. And I think Dusty May's the same way, right? He's going to be all over the scout, like we mentioned, like you just mentioned, AB UCSD. That hey, I'm well prepared. He's got friends that know UCSD inside and out. I'm sure he's already called them. They're going to be extremely well prepared. And again, as Brian Bush said, man, this is, you feel bad. Everybody's feeling bad for Michigan. Feel bad for UCSD too here, getting an underseeded Michigan team, because I think that's a bad matchup for them. And it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. But at the same time, I really trust Dusty May in the postseason. Remember the John Beeline years, man. We had it so good. And I think we're set up for more success, to cover more success with Dusty May here. I'm not predicting he's the next John Beeline in the postseason, but I do predict that he's going to have a lot of success in the postseason here at Michigan.
I agree. Like you said, he's proven to be a really good tournament coach when you look at his last 3 years, right? 2023, they go 35-4. They win the Conference USA tournament title. They go to the Final Four. Last year, 25-9. They're in a new conference in the American, a step up for them. I think sixth best conference in the country, sixth or seventh. They win that. They go to the NCAA tournament as an 8 seed. Actually, they lost in the tournament final. Then they go as an 8 seed. They lose in overtime to Northwestern, and then Michigan. When they were counted out heading into the Big Ten tournament, go in, win that, get themselves a 5 seed. Probably should have been higher. And opportunities here this weekend to prove people wrong and really just make a run themselves. That's what it's all about. But yeah, he's done a fantastic job. I think that they are set up here to potentially have a really good weekend. I mean, it's hard for me to actually make a prediction right now. One, I've been so busy, I've hardly looked at the bracket other than Michigan's region. I do find a potential Elite Eight matchup with Michigan State really, really interesting. I think Michigan could win that one in Atlanta. Michigan would be really well represented. I guess so would Michigan State down there. But that would be a lot of fun if the Sparties can get there along with the Wolverines. Auburn is a team that, they're the number 1 overall seed, potentially Michigan's matchup in the Sweet 16, but haven't looked as good down the stretch. And there are people hitting the panic button there. They still were able to secure that number 1 overall seed, but you look at them losing 3 out of their last 4 games is at least something to look at. Although I'm Mr. You can't take one result to the next, which is kind of funny. Like I was reminding people for weeks on the show here that, the season's not over. You're not just going to play the way you have been the rest of the way necessarily. And now I'm going to be doing the same thing. Like just because Michigan won the Big Ten tournament doesn't guarantee them anything. Look at, Purdue loses last year in the Big Ten tournament. Wisconsin beat them in the semis. And then Wisconsin gets bounced early. Purdue goes to the national title game. Illinois, though, is an example of they kind of carried the momentum last year after winning the Big Ten tournament, going to the Elite Eight. So it can go either way. But, I think Michigan will make the second weekend if Anthony's going to put a gun to my head here.
Yeah, I think that if you just talk ceiling floor, I mean, obviously in the right, or it would be the wrong set of circumstances, but there's no guarantee for what happens Thursday night. I think when I look at, ceiling, like what does that even mean? I could see a path for this team to get to the Sweet 16. I don't particularly trust Auburn, but I think that would be just a little too much firepower to overcome. This is just an observation I had, and I hadn't looked too much into it, but I just kind of formulated this here. Top 5 teams on KenPom. Pretty good chance one of these teams is going to be the national champion. That's just kind of how it goes. But Duke, Florida, Houston, Auburn, Tennessee. I don't trust Houston. I don't trust Bruce Pearl. And I don't trust Rick Barnes. So where some of the chaos comes? A lot of people saying this could be sort of a chalk tournament, but if Michigan and Dusty May find themselves in a game with Bruce Pearl, there's a shot there. I mean, that's the thing is that if you find a way to get to that second weekend, and a lot of people ask me, like, what is your baseline expectation for what Michigan basketball can be? I've always felt it's a program that can and should, leverage the resources it has to be a team that routinely makes the second weekend of the tournament, like they have. If they're able to do it this time around, it would be what, 6 straight tournaments that they've made, I believe, where they will have made the NCAA tournament. I think if you find a way to get this win Thursday night, from, in my opinion, everything from there is gravy. I think you will have accomplished what realistically could have been accomplished this season for Michigan. So that's where I'm at with it. I could see anything past the Sweet 16 for me would be an incredible overachievement. And I say that that's a compliment to them.
Yeah. And I'll say this too, though. It depends on upsets too, right? How many times? Remember the Fab Five? You know, they didn't have to play Arizona in round 2 because Arizona got upset by I forget even who it was. I think East Tennessee State or something like that. So they get to play the 15 seed instead of the 2 in the second round. So when it comes to ceilings, it really matters. Obviously, what happens other places as well. If you look at,
Ask Dusty May about that, by the way,
exactly
how that benefited his team.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. San Diego State being another example here. So there are going to be upsets, flat out. There are. People can say,
and there is an interesting, I can't remember. I just did a radio hit before this, but I can't remember if we talked about it here yet or not. Auburn's the number 1 overall seed, and they could feasibly play, I believe, the number 8 seed in Louisville in the state of Kentucky in round 2.
It's a home game.
And that's no gimme.
No. And like you said, I don't trust Bruce Pearl either. And I talked to some very good basketball minds who basically said, this guy is kind of a fraud. He gets the talent and you throw the ball out there. And that's not a very well coached basketball team. They win a lot of games with their talent. But I would trust Dusty May to give them a game. That's a team that John Beilein, regularly beat a team like that. So, and I think Dusty May's got some of those same qualities. So I can't wait to see it, fellas. I'm just happy that we're back here in 1 year when after 8 games last year, guys, they won 8 games last year. And we're thinking, man, you're going to build this program and it's going to be a couple of years. And Dusty May said, nah, let's go out and let's win in year 1. I want to win now. And even there were some of our subscribers who bumped into him and they said, well, I can't wait to see you next year and what you do. And he goes, what do you mean next year? We still have a lot of games to play this year and championships to win. And guess what? He's got one already. God bless him. And I would not put it past him again to have a really nice showing in Denver. They're going out there Tuesday. They're going to get acclimated to the altitude, which is huge. And they got to get their legs back. I think playing a little bit later on Thursday will help them. But more than anything, guys, I think that chip on their shoulder about the seeding, I think that Dusty's going to play that up, and I think they're going to come out with with really some fire in their bellies there.
Yeah, and Anthony, what you were kind of referring to there is FAU getting Farley Dickinson second round in 2023 instead of Purdue, right? Which could easily happen here with it wouldn't be a 16 that you get to face in round 2, but it would be a little bit of more of a favorable matchup and a revenge game for Danny Wolf. They got rid of him. They didn't want him. Just kidding. That's not how it works anymore. Transfers, it's not necessarily a revenge game when you leave for a much bigger school, much bigger platform, and somewhere that has developed you and helped you into potentially a first round pick there. But that would be a really fun storyline, I think, in round 2. And one of the reasons why I'm not willing to put a ceiling on a team is because, like you guys said, there's no guarantee that Bruce Pearl, who hasn't got out of the second weekend since he made the Final Four in 2019, is going to be there on the second weekend. It's a tough matchup that they have potentially. So that's why this is such a fun time of year, because we can sit here, look at the bracket, and okay, this team and Ken Palm says that, and Vegas says this, and the game starts, and you're like, oh, that's right. Like this 14 is going to randomly beat that 3, and then this 15 is going to win. So it's going to be a ton of fun. And just real quick, going back to something you said, Anthony, about like this team should be routinely into the second weekend and all that. Like, I hope people realize how special it is, though, that Michigan had done that, because it's not normal, right? I mean,
it's hard.
Like, you would think, okay, Sweet 16 means you're a top 16 team in the country. That's really hard to be in that top 16 and win and get the right matchups and get the breaks that it takes to consistently prove that you're a top 16 team in the country in a one and done tournament setting. As John Beilein said way back about something, right? Winning the Big Ten or winning games in the NCAA tournament. I always remember him saying the quote, like, this just doesn't happen. And it really doesn't happen. Michigan made 5 straight Sweet 16s. That was a Big Ten record. I mean, no one else does that. So I hope people realize how special it is. And if they're fortunate enough to get to another one and make a deep run, I'm sure people will, but just realize how incredible it is that Michigan's had this type of success in the NCAA tournament.
And to win the Big Ten tournament, guys. A lot of people are saying, oh, a lot of rivals are saying it doesn't matter. Tell that to Tom Izzo, who was like, damn it, I really wanted to win this thing after the game. I wanted to come here and win in front of these fans. Michigan State had by far the best gathering of fans in Indianapolis, I thought.
Best or most?
Not the best, obviously, the most. So thank you, Clay, for that correction. Purdue was well represented as well. So, but Michigan State, they were ready to go off, man. They wanted to play Michigan or Maryland. They didn't care who or whoever, but hey, Michigan took care of business, and it is hard. 4 of the last 8 tournaments now, Michigan has been in the final of the Big Ten tournament. 3 of them they've won. I don't think anybody's won more in that span, have they? 3 out of 8. So,
No.
and yeah, so, and over a span of 3 coaches as well. So it is hard to win a banner. As Kevin Willard said, Maryland's coach, he said, hey,
He knows
yeah, and exactly. He knows as well as anybody. And he said, it is when you get an opportunity, don't be fooled. You want to win that banner. It's going to be hanging up in Chrysler. Can't wait to see it, guys. And I get the sense that this is just the start for Dusty May.
Real quick, I want to clarify kind of the second weekend comment I made. I just meant in terms of in most years, I think that's a great season. Now, there are going to be years where that might be disappointing. They might have a top 5, top 6 team. There'll be other years where maybe that's just not possible. Where you're like, all right, well, maybe they just win a game and that'd be awesome. But I think more often than not, Michigan can be and has been that program. So shout out to them. Shout out to the legacy that John Beilein sort of left and created. And both Juwan Howard and Dusty May have kind of had success.
Michigan State, how many have they been? How many times have they been out of the first weekend, Clay, in the last 8 years? 2?
Like just once, right?
Was it 1 or 2? Yeah, so that just goes to show you how hard it is. You got Mr. March there, who's been to so many Final Fours, and he's having a hard time getting to the second weekend. So I'm guessing that won't be a problem this time because of their draw. They get to play Marquette again, and then an Iowa State team probably in the Sweet 16, I think, right? The 3rd seed that's missing one of its best players. But you never know, fellas. You just never know.
We just think if we talk a little football.
Let's do it.
Well, we'll start with the.
You were right, by the way, on the. It's been 2 times since 2015, which was a while ago. That's 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
2015, that was Middle Tennessee State, right?
2015, they made the Final Four, but since then, it's been round 1 exit, round 2 exit, round 2 exit, Final Four, canceled tournament, round first 4 exit, round 2 exit, Sweet 16 lost to Kansas State, and then round 2 exit.
Gotcha. Well, shout out to Bryant. I believe they're the Bulldogs, coached by Phil Martelli Jr. So that's an interesting plot thread. Be a lot of Michigan fans rooting against Michigan State anyways, but certainly now rooting for Phil Martelli Jr. Let's talk football. Of course, I'm referring to the Jordan Fly Elite football here. They are another sponsor of our show. I'm holding it up on the screen. For the first time ever, Jordan Brand's signature innovation, performance, and swagger are hitting the turf in the Big House. This ball that I'm holding on screen, if you're watching on YouTube, is the official game ball of the Wolverines, and you will see it in action all season long. It's got the signature Maze, Jumpman, and Block M logos on it. It was engineered to the specifications of Michigan's quarterback room with their input, guidance from the coaches, players, and more. Got the pebbled lace, a visible colorized Maze lace reinforcement flap, an overlay stripe, and it's handcrafted by our friends in the USA at Big Game Football Factory. Every ball that you order will come with a certificate of authenticity, and it's not just a football, folks. It is a piece of Michigan football history. So it's the perfect gift for a true Michigan fan, whether you want to display it, whether you want to toss it around the yard, whatever you want to do, it's yours. You can be among the first to own it. Snap yours up today over at biggameusa.com/Wolverines. The Jordan Fly Elite football over at biggameusa.com/Wolverines. We turn the page to football now because tomorrow is the start of spring football for Michigan. Got to talk to both coordinators today, both defensive coordinator Wink Martindale and new offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Chip Lindsey. A lot sort of a lot more to glean from Lindsey, given that that's, we've heard him on podcasts and things like that, but really our first time to get to know him a little bit, know what he's all about, discuss the quarterback room, and a lot of, he went through everything, whether it was the offensive line, getting the backs involved in the passing game, the wide receiver, tight end situations, all of it. I want to get your first impressions, fellas, on Chip Lindsey after getting to know him a little bit today.
I love the way he communicates, right? Number one. Number two, he didn't say a whole, he talked a lot without saying a whole lot. And that's to be expected because spring ball hasn't started yet. I would really love to get these guys after 2 weeks to find out, okay, who's standing out at left tackle. I asked him about the tackle spot. He's like, well, Andrew Sprague's going to stay on the right side, and left side, we'll see what happens. And he mentioned Andrew Babalola as a possibility down the road, but he's young. And generally, it's usually guys that have been here for a while. So it sure seems to me like they're going into spring ball with Evan Link at left tackle. Deductive reasoning, right? Which scares me a little bit. But as John Jansen, who we ran into at Schembeckler Hall, said, you know what? He played better on the left side and against Alabama than he played on the right side all year. So maybe, that was a good move for him. I want to see him on the interior. And that's another thing that Lindsey said was, we'll see who's better where. He also did say that they will tailor their offense to their strengths and weaknesses, which means, if you've got a weak link at left tackle, then there are ways that you're going to have to develop your offense to protect your quarterback. And he also mentioned the portal. I asked him about the portal, and he said, we found spring portal at North Carolina wasn't as stacked with players as we thought it would be. Now, Michigan's had some success getting guys in the spring portal that have come in and played huge roles. So I still think that they're going to look for an offensive lineman and at least another receiver. I'm almost positive of that. But he said, let's develop the guys we have here and go from there. So thought he said some really nice things about Bryce Underwood and Mikey Keene. That's going to be a quarterback battle. I like the fact that Mikey Keene came here and he didn't care that Bryce Underwood was going to be here. He said Justice Haynes looks like an absolute man-child. So like that, I think that he's going to have success here. So what's up?
Say that.
No, he didn't say that, but I'm just paraphrasing. So he said he looked like an absolute beast, is what he said. He didn't say that either.
No.
He said he looked really, really ripped or something like that. But regardless, he said he looked damn good.
Were you there?
I was kind of, but damn it, I was driving until midnight last night. So, however, he said he looked really good. So I like him. I like what he brings to the table, and it was fun to listen to those guys. Wink Martindale said a lot of the same stuff when we asked him questions. Well, we'll have to see in the spring. Well, we'll have to see what happens, and so on and so forth. So, in short, there was a lot of talking, but I didn't think a whole lot of information gleaned.
Yeah, that's like you said. They haven't even practiced yet, and that's kind of what spring ball is all about. Is like it's almost a period of asking questions, right? Can this guy handle this? What's this guy looking like now after another winter working out in the strength and conditioning program and all that sort of stuff. But I think, and also no offense to Chip Lindsey, but he's there's been every coordinator in the country has said at one point they're going to tailor their system to the personnel too. So like all this is preliminary, and it'll be interesting to see. Not that we're going to get to see a ton of what the scheme's going to look like in the spring game, but you'll kind of just see how things are coming together once we actually get a glimpse of these guys on the field, and then we can sift through the coach speak and actually make our own observations. But yeah, I think that the quarterback stuff with Mikey Keene was one of the more interesting things to me, and it reminded me exactly of Jack Tuttle's mentality when he came in.
Mm-hmm.
Tuttle came here when Michigan had a returning starting quarterback that ended up entering November the next year as the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Like, he knew that unless J.J. McCarthy got hurt, which, he had dealt with an injury the year before, he wasn't going to be the starter, but he wanted to win a national championship, and he wanted to coach. And Chip Lindsey said that Mikey Keene wants to coach one day, and he didn't even really ask about Bryce Underwood and what the competition would look like. He's willing to come in, compete, bring his experience. He's played in 39 games. He started 34 of them. He's thrown for over 8,000 yards. They needed a guy, as Chip Lindsey said today, with experience at the college level, especially considering the Davis Warren, who we saw today here in Ann Arbor, was walking around pretty well. But considering he's going to be out for a while after tearing his ACL in the bowl game, on a play that he shouldn't have left the pocket on. So, but I was encouraged by that, and just the fact that you feel like that quarterback room is going to remain pretty connected no matter what they decide, and also significant. And I'm sure you were going to get to it, Anthony. That he thinks it's unlikely that they name a starter coming out of spring too, which isn't surprising. I don't think many coaches with the transfer portal era are going to name a starter out of the spring. But especially with this one, right? Why why make a decision this early? Like he said, we want to make sure we're right. And you also want to just, hey, let Bryce Underwood ease himself in. They're going to throw a lot at him right away, but try to take as much pressure off of him as you can, and understand that, by the time August 30th, I believe it is, rolls around, then that's when he's got to be ready. He doesn't have to be ready on June 1, when summer workouts start or whatever it is. He's got to be ready at the end of August if he's going to be the starter. So it's going to be interesting. You hear great things about Underwood and the mentality he has, the way he's working, which is encouraging as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff that we've heard. Because Chip Lindsey has been on podcasts, Sharon Moore has been on podcasts, Bryce Underwood has been on with Rich Eisen. Yeah, it's not a shot at our colleagues or anything like that, but I feel like when the question about are you going to name a starting quarterback this spring, when stuff like that comes up, they're just trying to get the quote as opposed to actually wondering if that's the case. Because obviously, when you have a true freshman that comes in, even with the investment that they've made, he still never played a down of college football. Mikey Keene has never played a down of power conference football. Both those guys weren't here last year. So split out the reps, let them go out there and compete. Clayton, you made the point, spring ball is a lot like you're setting a pecking order and almost maybe like setting up questions to answer for fall camp. This is all reps. This is all setting that pecking order, getting an idea, and really that this is pretty consequential for a lot of guys too. They have to get this roster down to 105. I think right now they're projected at around 115, 116. I have to check my list, but there are guys on this roster going to spring ball that won't be, and there'll be guys that are on other rosters that might be here after spring ball. So good foundation set again. Not a whole lot to glean. The one thing I did like from Wink Martindale, and we had walked in a few minutes behind on this comment, but he said, do I tease Jesse Minter and Mike McDonald that I only gave up 10 points to Ohio State and they didn't? Of course I do. So that's the OG was in a regular OG form today.
He sure was, but he didn't say anything noteworthy, frankly. And I mean, I asked him about Zeke.
That's
Berry.
our spring football preview. Everyone.
Exactly. I asked him if Zeke Berry would be staying at corner, and he said we'll play him where we need him. We asked him who was going to be playing at nickel. He said there are 6 guys. Wouldn't name them. He did give a nice comment to Shamari Earls, right? And so and said that he was going to be good. So at corner, but other than that, it's wait and see. So regardless, let's take some questions here and finish this thing up and go from there.
Yeah, and the big takeaway too that he kept coming back to, like the thing that seems to be on his mind heading into spring ball, having not seen a practice yet, is that he does believe at all positions this defense is going to be deeper than a year ago. He said we don't have any bona fide first round draft picks. Do we have some day 2 guys? Yeah. And he said that there could be some that end up emerging as first-round picks. But I think that they're trying to bet on here that you're not going to have your Mason Grahams and Kenneth Grants and Will Johnsons, which is really hard to possess that type of talent. But maybe they're a little bit deeper, and they won't have specific weaknesses as much as they maybe did a year ago, especially at the beginning of the season before some of those guys got experience. That you can make up for your lack of first-round picks in depth, being able to rotate guys through, keep them fresh, find the right combinations, use versatility, different players. So we'll see if it plays out. You hear this time of year a lot, especially in basketball. We got a deep team and all this, and you never know. But you seem to trust that Wink Martindale's not BSing you on that. So that was also nice to hear.
Yeah, spring football, of course, starts Tuesday, March 18th. So that's tomorrow. We'll be in the building. I guess I'll be in the building later this week. You guys will be out in Denver. They'll do pro day for the NFL draft guys. And then hopefully maybe sometime next week, we'll start to get a feel for how practices are going, and we'll see who we get to talk to. So We will close out today with the Q&A portion of our show. If you're watching live, feel free. We've got a couple in the queue already. We'll start with Jamie Vance, and I believe this is in reference to basketball. He says, is depth with the injuries a concern to you guys at all?
Not as much now with LJ Kaysen coming on. I think he kind of took Pippen's spot there in his minutes. I don't know how you can not play more of LJ Kaysen at this point. He's earned it. 2 of the 3 games. Now, the middle game, Maryland, he struggled mightily, right? But the other 2, he played a key role, I thought, in both victories. So I think he'll be out there. Getting Sam Walters back would be huge, in my opinion, to help spread the floor. Another guy who can shoot the 3. We'll see if it happens. Originally, when we were talking to people about it, they said they hope to have him back by the NCAA tournament. Well, that's here now, so we'll see. But I do think Justin Pippen will be back. He was in concussion protocol, so no, not concerned about it. They are what they are at this point, and a lot of teams rely, when you get to the postseason, a lot of teams rely on their first 5-6 guys, and this team won't be any different.
Yeah, I think I'm a little concerned. I think that one of the reasons why LJ Kaysen could struggle, not play as much in that Maryland game was because you went to some other guys, and now Roddy Gale going down, came back in, then didn't play towards the end. We'll see what that is. Looked like a hamstring. Maybe he was just cramping up. That would be the hope. I guess he came out with like some sort of kind of sleeve on his like upper leg, but we'll see what that is. But yeah, it'd be nice to get some guys back. I would imagine Pippen could come back, if it was just, a concussion or whatever, having over a week. But it seems like those practices were in fact physical. They all talked about it, and then one guy was out with a concussion, but hopefully he's doing all right.
Just reminded me of the team 2 years ago, the Frankie Collins, I think that was the Caleb Houston, Moussa Diabate team too, where they're talking about how physical practice was. And, we have black eyes and busted lips. And I'm sitting there going, what the hell are they doing in practice? And as it turned out, nothing productive, but obviously Michigan's practices last week.
Well, if it was
very
productive.
productive.
3-16.
That is true. This was that team. This was the NIT team that missed the tournament.
Okay.
So whatever that group was. Mike Fort wants to know, my only question, what the hell is the point of playing in the Big Ten tournament if you'll make the dance and can't improve your seed? Because the Big Ten and television has sold to the television network. I've seen people say, they got to move this game up, or they got to move it to Saturday. CBS wants the title game as the lead-in program to the selection show. It's just going to be this way, and that's just how it is.
Yep, money, as Mr. Dave writes, absolutely true. It is a chance to hang a banner, no matter what anybody says. If you beat the best of the best in the Big Ten at the end of the year, you deserve to hang a banner. I would have said that even if Michigan had lost. And again, every Big Ten coach would agree with me. So there's that. And it's not like this every year. There have been times that winning a couple games in the tournament has absolutely improved your seeding or helped you make the tournament. This committee just decided that wasn't going to be the case this year, and they suck. So congratulations, guys. You are basically the laughing stock of social media and embarrassed all of yourselves.
Yeah. I mean, it's still an important tournament. I think that it is tough when you do have to play Sunday night. And then in Michigan's case, you play Thursday. Either maybe the committee who makes money off all this and their TV partner does leading into the selection show, as you said, Anthony, maybe they could agree to put teams that are in that game on a Friday. But I know there's a lot that goes into where teams go when they play. It has to do with so many different factors. But that is unfortunate. Maybe you could move it up a day, but like you said, they're probably not going to do it. So it's a great event. I love the Big Ten tournament. One of my favorite weekends of the year. But once in a while you get you draw the short straw there with the draw and the timing of your game and all the travel that goes into it.
Yeah, like I said, I just think there's so much wrong with the way this tournament was seeded that, I mean, we're griping for Michigan, but unless you're a 1 or a 2 seed, or really Wisconsin wound up getting a 3, I think almost everyone. There's a lot of teams on that 5 line and below that are probably sitting here going like, what the hell was that all about? Like, I don't understand how it was seeded. It seems like they leaned heavily into the net and analytics. And I disagree with it because Michigan's resume was pretty darn good throughout the year.
Also,
This is from Junko Bodie, who says, how many guys will Dusty go to the portal for in the offseason? What positions is he looking for? Well, we know he's looking at least one guy, Chris.
Yeah, Owen Freeman from Iowa. Michigan is making a move there. We've got intel on our site today about what he's looking for and who he's looking at. And I think Dusty May's done a great job recruiting him. So outstanding big guy. I talked to some Big Ten insiders about him today who said Michigan would be a great fit for him. They think he knows it. Now, if it's just a pure money grab and somebody comes in here with a much bigger offer, Michigan's playing that NIL game now, and they've got money to spend, fellas. They're not going to break the bank for anybody, for any one recruit, in my opinion. I don't think that's the way Dusty May wants to do it. But Owen Freeman certainly fits what he wants to do. And I think he'd be a coup. So land him. I think they would go for a wing, a nice combo, and maybe another big guy as well. We know that they're recruiting a couple of 2025 big guys who will be first-year guys as well. So that's what they're looking for right now. I think Trey Donaldson's going to be your point guard next year. You got Trey McKinney coming in. I think LJ Kaysen's going to make a huge move next year. But remember, we got 15 slots next year as well. So there are a few more guys that they can go after. And I trust that Dusty May is already all over it, as we know, because Owen Freeman has a do not contact on his transfer portal information. So he knows what schools he's interested in. Michigan's already one of them, which means that Michigan's been doing its homework.
Yeah, and he would be a really good add. I think you need a big guy in addition to some freshmen that you bring in just to have some experience down low. And Freeman's really good. He obviously kind of broke out as a freshman at Iowa, and you just see the skill post player, a little bit undersized, especially compared to what Michigan's used to having down low with 7-footer after 7-footer, especially with the two this season. But he's really skilled. I think could run the pick and roll. And I think you need a playmaking wing really bad. I think it's probably what this team is missing in general. Obviously, every team is missing something in college basketball, but this team could use that. I think they could use that in the future. And I think, as Dusty May talked about last week when he was on with Dan Dockich, that they've learned a lot from their first year playing in the Big Ten, even losing games at the end of the year. He said they learned some lessons from that, what it takes to be first place instead of second place, and they're going to take all that into account when it comes to roster building.
I trust whatever they do at this point, assembling it the way that they did. And you're not going to hit on every single guy, even guys this year. We respect what the Reuben Jones and Roddy Gales and Sam Walters of the world have done for this team, but it hasn't gone all according to plan, which makes it a little more impressive that they are where they're at, all things considered. Fellas, I think it's going to do it for us today. Next time that we speak together, you guys will be in Denver. Excited for that. Hoping to hop on the bandwagon, so to speak, in Atlanta next week. Would love to be able to make that trip.
What's the wing joint there that everybody talks about?
Magic City. I think it's a wing joint.
Magic City Mondays, baby.
Sounds great.
That's right.
I can't wait.
So we'll see if we wind up getting down there. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching the video version, of course, you can also find us wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to use that the best deal in America, that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to our site for only $1 for Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, our producer Megan behind the scenes. I'm Anthony Broom. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you later this week.